but it's the difficulties in relations that finds a lot of space in domestic politics. Now, we've seen Rahul Gandhi walk out of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Relations when it comes to discussions on China, demanding that there needs to be discussion. There has been a lot of talk from the opposition on whether if the government has been transparent enough. Just wanted to know whether if there is a sense in the government in briefing the opposition of the difficulties that the government faces or the difficulties that the government now faces with China, and whether if the government indeed has been transparent with the country and with the opposition.
Look, I've been in the government a long time, a really long time, and over multiple governments. I think, governments, obviously when it comes to national security situations, all governments, when it comes to national security situations, say enough so that, people outside the government have a fair sense of what is happening, and expect that people outside there will be supportive of larger national objectives and goals. Now, if sometimes it doesn't happen because people are busy politicking, I just have to say it's a very sorry state of affairs. But I don't think, just look back at the last year and a half. We know so much about what is happening out there. So nobody can say, oh, I have not been told enough, or there's been lack of briefing. I mean, I don't know the standing committee episode that you're referring to, but I can tell you, for example, as a foreign minister, we have a consultative committee, and this issue has been discussed. So it's been discussed in Parliament. Raksha Mantri has given repeated statements. So I think somewhere we need a sense of responsibility and maturity when it comes to national security matters. It should not be a subject for posturing.
Minister, staying with China, from the political part of it, just going back to the LAC for a moment, there have, as you no doubt know, there have been multiple rounds of talks, over a dozen rounds of talks between the corps commanders. You've met your counterpart a few times. There's a question of the return to status quo of April 2020, and there is also a sense that the Chinese are there in large numbers, they're talking to us, but there's no sign of any really big disengagement. Have things changed on the ground, sir? Is there a realization that this situation is becoming a kind of semi-permanent, foreseeable future kind of situation where we have to live with the Chinese in large numbers at our doorstep?
Have things changed on the ground with reference to April 2020?
Yes.
Well, obviously. I mean, things have changed enormously on the ground. I mean, they brought forces up, so we have counter-deployed. So now if you ask me how long will that continue, it will continue as long as they deploy. So look, let me be very, very clear about one thing. Yes, I mean, they have done things, as I said, which were in contravention of agreements, etc. But there's been no lack of resolve or firmness or effectiveness in terms of what we have to do to protect our national security. So we've also had additional deployments, and they've stayed through one winter. We are getting close to another winter. So I have every confidence that the Indian Armed Forces will do what they have to do to protect this country. And I expect everybody else who's reasonably patriotic to have the same confidence.
Dr. Jaishankar, having one hostile neighbor is bad enough. At this moment, we have the PLA amassed along the LAC. We have the Pakistani army, which continues its nefarious designs along the line of control and in Jammu and Kashmir. And now we have in Afghanistan, China and Pakistan working in concert. Would you say in some senses this is a worst case strategic situation playing itself out? And how are you recalibrating India's strategy given the fact that you've got two hostile neighbors working so closely in tandem?
Rahul, we're coming back to this point, which is you pose the problem as though I have a choice in the matter. I don't. I have what I have. So if I've had a pretty much a continuously difficult situation on my western border. Now, if along with that I have an aggravation on my northern border, but I will do what I have to do to meet it. I can't say, well, I'm overstretched or I don't like it or, this is a very complex challenge. I mean, I'm presented with a clear and present danger, and I have to respond to that. And I would say, very frankly, we have, the armed forces have done that, have done a very good job in responding to it.
The one thing I'm sure many people sitting here at the India Today conclave, watching on TV or on digital assets would really appreciate is the manner in which not just that we stood up to the PLA, but we stood up to neo-imperialism of kind being shown by the United Kingdom on the issue of the Desi vaccine. The same vaccine, when they're administering to their citizens, to others, they think is good enough for them to be allowed to travel the world over. And when India administers the Covishield, somehow they had a problem. And that's, really a sign of a new assertive India saying, okay, you don't let me in, I don't let you in, now you're quarantined as well. Well done, Dr. Jaishankar.
Well, thank you. I just think it's a sensible India. I mean, what else would you do? I mean, to me, this was a problem which shouldn't have arisen in the first place. So, we did what we had to do, and I'm glad we've sorted out the situation. And I had a very, very cordial talk with my counterpart this afternoon. I hope both of us agreed that we should find ways by which travel happens more freely and naturally and without quarantine between our countries. So that's where it is.
Well, just shifting focus to the United States of America, we're looking at an entirely new theater. That's the AUKUS. We know Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to the United States of America. The Quad Summit was a great success. But how do you see the Quad vis-a-vis AUKUS, which is a military alliance, and it is very openly says it's a counter-China alliance?
Well, look, I'm not part of AUKUS, so what AUKUS says doesn't say it's for them to decide. My understanding of it is a large part of it derives from a particular capability, which is an Australian submarine capability, and whatever discussions the concerned countries have had about enhancing that capability. But very frankly, I don't see a particular connection between any of that and the Quad. First of all, two of us in the Quad, Japan and us, are not involved in it. Secondly, a lot of Quad countries, two of them or one of them sometimes, have other relationships, other trilaterals or quadrilaterals or other organizations. So it's not that there's any understanding that the four Quad countries only deal among themselves. Everybody deals with everybody else. We ourselves have a trilateral, we and Australia with Indonesia. We have a trilateral, we and Australia with Japan. In fact, interestingly, we in Australia have a trilateral with France, okay, which was supposed to meet in New York, which didn't. Look, today the nature of diplomacy has changed. This combination of countries is sitting together and figuring out how best to advance their interests and address their concerns. This is getting more and more routinized. This is evolution of the international order, partly because we are moving away from the bipolar and the unipolar world. So even the United States, finds it useful to work with other countries, and obviously other, lesser powers even more so. The fact is also that the reality of the strategic landscape, multilateral solutions and initiatives are not readily available. So I think to some extent, the UN is gridlocked, it is anachronistic, it's often not there. So when you have that situation, but the problems are still real and pressing, I think countries have just decided, okay, we'll go find our own fix. And this is one of those cases.
Minister, you've been at the very tops of India's official machinery, and now you're the minister. Very curious to know, and I'm sure a lot of other people are as well, if you could give us a little bit of insight into how the machine sort of recalibrated itself from a Trump administration to a Biden administration. We all know what the Trump administration was like. Yeah, I just want to know, how is it dealing with Trump, and how different is it dealing with a President
No,
Biden?
our machine or their machine?
Ours.
Our
Yes.
machine. Okay. Look, you know.
And your ministry in particular.
Sure. Oh, that's the machine
Yes.
which